The paper's easy. You just, if you get like I do, 300-gram cartridge, it's not going to cockle, it's too strong. I put 3 coats of gesso primer on it, I work straight on the wall, quick and easy. The canvas is a different ball game. So first thing I do is fix the centre, just to hold it in place, just the first 6 inches, and then I'll go to the opposite side and pull it tight and staple it there. With all 4 sides fixed, I now start to work along towards the corners, trying to keep the canvas evenly pulled all the way around. Of course I won't succeed, but with 1 inch in 12 as the shrinkage when it's primed, you've got leeway to be at ease with what you achieve, providing you pull it tight. Don't worry if a corner lifts off the floor slightly, that shows the canvas is going really tight. It will lift even more when you prime it, but the canvas will stretch again as it dries and it will go down and you'll get something that's relatively flat. Added to which you've always got John to fall back on. This is the point where I wish there were 2 of us doing the filming, because when you get to the corner life gets a little complicated, because you want a nice neat corner on the canvas. You want the front of the canvas to look nice and tidy and square. Okay, and this is, my dad used to be a male nurse in the Air Force years ago when they made beds up proper, what they don't do these days, and he used to tell me these are what's called hospital corners, where all the loose bits are neatly folded away and you're left with a nice clean edge all the way around. Okay, so here we've got to try to fold this under to make a nice corner. Now I can't film it as well as do it, so you're going to have to ask your mum to show you what hospital bed corner is, or your dad, one of them will know, I should think. But the idea is to keep the canvas pulling square and flat, and you can see the stress lines as I get towards the corner of the canvas where it's pulling it tighter and tighter. Now you don't need to worry about it being absolutely fantastically drum hard tight at this stage, because don't forget it's going to shrink. So any ripples there might be along the front edge where you've put the staples in and perhaps not got it as flat as you might like, or as even as you might like, as you can see here there's some ripples there, those will disappear because the canvas will shrink and remove them. So all you've got to do is get it modestly in place, and it is quite tight. You need strong fingers for this game. If you don't have strong fingers, don't worry, they'll grow on you. See the neat corner, if possible, as neat as possible, and the staples go in roughly every inch, inch and a half apart, all the way around evenly, pulling tight every time. Okay, so I use a gesso from Golden Colour. Gesso being basically, or in the old days it would have been a clay-based paint which was inert and didn't react with the paints. Nowadays of course it's a different composition, it's chemical. And I start in the middle of the canvas and I push it firmly, hard, into the canvas. It's got to wrap around all the fibres. You can see already how tight the canvas is, because as I press with the brush, the canvas isn't going down onto the floor below. So it's stretched tight enough already to give me some bounce. The nice thing about canvas to work on is it actually seems to love to take the paint off the brush. Of course it means you use a hell of a lot more paint, but it's very satisfying to feel that the canvas is actually working with you when you make the painting. So I work out from the middle
and I will paint in one direction now, and then when I do the second coat, I'll paint at right angles to it, just to make sure that I get the canvas primed thoroughly in every way. Now you'll see one of my studio shoes that's spotted with white paint. I call them my studio slippers. These shoes have served me well. They've waded through rivers in Africa, and now, wearing out, they serve their turning duty as my studio slippers. Okay, so working out from the middle towards the edges, making sure that it's thoroughly pushed into the canvas weave. Don't worry about the edge for the moment. It doesn't matter so much, you can go over it at the end to fill the edge in. So let's take it out to the end now. I always use the same brush for priming. I just keep one brush, especially for it. It primes the paper as well as the canvases. I don't wash it, I'll just stick it in a pot of water because it gets used quite frequently. If I'm doing these paper things every couple of days, then it's in use every couple of days. Doesn't seem to make much sense to have to keep spending half an hour washing it out when all I'm doing is using it with the same stuff all the time. So it sits in a pot of water and gets used. If it gets wrecked, I'll buy another one. They're only a £5. They're good, a good paint and decorator's brush, nothing special. So, now it's far from finished, then the little blobs I just flick off, that's it, onto the studio floor, where they get nicely trodden into the patina of everything else. Take it right to this edge. Now you can just perhaps see there's a ripple in the edge there, but that will disappear. In fact, it's disappearing as I put the primer on. Try and get the paint smooth. You don't want to leave ripples. You don't want to leave bits and bobs stuck in it. It wants to be as flat as you can get it with the brush without trying to make it look like a roller's put it on, and continue to push it into the canvas. It isn't just a question of coating the surface, it's trying to work it into the canvas to try as if you were trying to push it through. I'm not trying to push it through, but in the old days of course I would have done. Not anymore, I don't need to. The same way, bits come out. The bits are frozen because they're not in the material, the paint I'm using. Sorry Golden, I might have given that impression, but it's not yours, it's mine. I use this pot to decant from a very large 4-litre pot of primer. So, because it's easier to carry half a litre around than it is to carry 4 litres around. Do I know what's going on this canvas? Yeah, of course I do. That's the reason it's this size. I had a little 2-foot square, those stretchers put together over there, but having thought about it for a week or so, I've decided they're the wrong size. It's too small. 2-foot square is good because it sells easy, if I can say it like that. But it only suits certain sizes of image. And this image that I'm putting on here, I'll show you at the end, is going to demand a much more interesting treatment than I can do on 2 foot square. Now you see any ripples on that side have disappeared completely, and the canvas is already stretching. Listen, hear that? It's going like a drum. That's the shrinkage in the canvas itself. And sometimes it can be a bit alarming if you've been successful in stretching the canvas really tight. You can find when it's priming it, the bloody thing's lifting the corners off the floor. Don't worry, don't go down again, because the timber will push the stretch back to a certain extent. It'll never stretch back to as big as it was, but it will lose that terrible distortion and get through it being too tight. You go, away. Trying to keep the brush strokes all running in the same direction and trying to remove them to a certain extent, get it as flat as possible so that the canvas itself will provide a lot of the texture. And you can see there's a slight mark down the middle where the paint's gone on at slightly different densities. That's why I put a second coat on. But there we go, that's the first coat. How tight is it? I'll show you in a second. Just put the lid back on the pot of primer. Listen. Like a drum. I've marked it. So, just get my brush again. Just take those out. There we go. There we go. One canvas, nicely stretched, good flat white, ready to be worked on.